we're diving into Blondies, these delicious, chewy, baked, vanilla-scented albino cousins of brownies. If your Blondies have ever come out dry on the edges and undercooked in the middle, or just plain sad and disappointing, you're in the right place. I've made 8 batches recently. Yeah, 8. And for the record, I wasn't planning on making a video about Blondies. My problem was I had a magic pumpkin, actually 2, grow in my garden, and so I roasted one of them and had 10 pounds of pumpkin puree. So here we are. I'm making brown butter pumpkin Blondies, and afterwards, I want to help answer why your Blondies aren't baking in the middle like my first batch, and how you can make sure they are damn delicious like my last batch. So let's get started. First things first, preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Now let's talk about the butter. We're gonna brown the butter here, which adds a deep nutty flavor that's crucial. Melt 160 grams or 12 tablespoons of butter in a saucepan over medium-high heat. Stir constantly as it bubbles and froths, until you see a golden brown color start to appear. And a smell that's irresistibly nutty, almost caramel in aroma. Once you see brown, take it off the heat and transfer it to a heat-proof container and pop it in the fridge to cool down. Just note, you don't want to let it re-solidify, you want to keep this as a liquid. While the butter cools, we'll prep the dry ingredients. Add 275 grams or 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons of cornstarch, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Mix it up and set it aside. Next, we're enhancing the flavor with fresh spices. Trust me, it makes a difference. Of course, you're welcome to use pre-ground cinnamon and pumpkin spice mix if you like. Warm on low heat a small piece of cinnamon, 3 to 4 cloves, 1 cracked open cardamom pod, 2 pieces from a star anise, and 1 small allspice in a pan for 2 to 4 minutes. I'm gonna grind them up, and I like to finish it off in this small, and I mean tiny mortar and pestle. Look at that little guy. I'll set it aside for now. I know some people add the spices to the dry ingredients, which you're welcome to do, but spices work well in fat, so I'm gonna add them to the wet ingredient. In a mixing bowl, combine 160 grams or 3/4 cup of packed brown sugar with 150 grams or 3/4 cup of white sugar. You can always play with that ratio. See the description below for more of an explanation on that. Then add the cooled brown butter and spices. Beat until the mixture is smooth. This step helps the sugar dissolve and creates a better texture. Then mix in 120 grams or 1/2 cup of pumpkin puree to make sure that everything is cooled down, followed by 1 egg and 1 egg yolk and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Mix everything until everything is creamy and uniform. Now slowly add your dry ingredients to the wet mixture, folding gently until just combined. Stir in 150 to 300 grams or 2/3 to 1 cup of mix-ins like butterscotch chips, white chocolate chips, regular chocolate chips, and pecans. Weight and volume are different, so just eyeball it. But don't skip this part. Brownies have an inherent richness with the chocolate, but Blondies really can benefit from something soft in the middle. Spread the batter evenly in a prepared 9x13 pan. Trust me, this size gives you the best results for even baking. I'll talk more about that after I'm done. Bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 26 to 30 minutes, keeping an eye on the edges for a light golden brown. A toothpick insert in the center should come out with moist crumbs, not raw batter, and not completely clean. Remember, carryover heat will finish the job after you take them out. Okay, while this cools down, let me set this aside and tell you everything I've learned after making so many Blondies. The first thing I learned was that there are a lot of recipes that have baking soda and baking powder in their recipe, and I cannot for the life of me understand why. There are recipes that don't have any leaveners as well, and I'm just trying to direct you to be wary of those that do. With the recipe I developed, I took it out and got a much denser Blondie. I'm trying to avoid a cake-like texture, so adding a leavener didn't make much sense. Plus, it didn't help with making sure the middle was baking properly. That's why I added cornstarch instead. Now, cornstarch helps create a chewy but still tender texture, and if you can make it a slurry, you can use it as a thickener when you add it to the wet ingredients. Second, use the right pan. A 9x13 pan ensures an even bake, while smaller pans can lead to undercooked centers and overbaked edges, especially if you see recipes that seem to make a large batter. Look, I'm not great at math, but a surface area of an 8x8 is 64 inches squared and 9x13 is 117. Now I picked up the $6 brownie pan that makes making Blondies much easier without the overbaked edges. But even a regular 9x13 pan works way better than a square pan if you're using a recipe with that much batter. If you're using an 8x8 or a 9x9 pan and you feel like the recipe is a lot, consider using 50 to 60% of the batter in the smaller pan, or you'll just have to bake it for longer. And the last thing about pans, the edges will always bake and brown faster, so consider using a light metal pan. And if you don't have one, just wrap your pan in aluminum foil. This helps reflect some of the heat, whereas a darker metal pan will absorb it, causing your edges to bake much faster than the middle. And avoid using glass. Glass is a poor conductor of heat, so your bake times are just longer. And when it comes to bake times, the longer you bake it and the more done the entire blondie gets, but at the risk of drying out the edges. Of course, you can always go low and slow and bake it at a lower temperature, say 325, for a bit longer to help avoid that. And finally, seriously, don't skip the mix-ins. They add a nice missing richness that blondies need. I hope these tips help you make the perfect brown butter pumpkin blondies. I'll see you in the next one.